both visible wounds and invisible grief. For me, that night still generates feelings of terror, fear, anger, and never-ending guilt. Feelings that will linger with me for the rest of my life. But today, I'm turning my grief into action by voting for SB143. I ask those opposed to SB143, what will it take for you to get it? According to the CDC, Nevada ranks among the top 20 states with the highest rates of firearm deaths. You probably already knew that our country leads the world in firearm deaths among youths. But did you know that Nevada is among the top states where those killings occur? Or did you know that Nevada women are 65% more likely than other women in America to be shot to death by their intimate partners? I ask you, how many more statistics are needed before we see change? Today we have an opportunity to actually do something about gun violence in our state. And so I urge every single one of my colleagues to support SB 143. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. There being no further remarks, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 28 ayes, 13 nays, 1 excused. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declared passed and order transmitted to the Senate. We'll now go on to order of business 9, introduction and first reading of bills.
Assembly Bill 147, introduced by Assemblyman Titus et al., an act relating to providers of health care authorizing a physician assistant or advanced practice registered nurse to perform certain services and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 148, introduced by Assemblyman Fumo, an act relating to criminal procedure, revising provisions governing plea agreements and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 149, introduced by Assemblyman Fumo, Senator Orenthal, an act relating to crimes abolishing the imposition of a sentence of death on a person convicted of first-degree murder, amending or repealing related statutes pertaining to the existence, imposition, and execution of a sentence of death on a person convicted of first-degree murder, reducing the sentence of any person sentenced to death to a sentence of imprisonment for life without the possibility of parole, and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 150, introduced by the Committee on Health and Human Services, an act relating to child welfare, authorizing certain adopted children to enter into an agreement with the agency which provides child welfare services that entitles such children to certain services and payments, requiring the agency which provides child welfare services to develop a written plan to assist a child who enters into such an agreement in transitioning into independent living, authorizing the agency which provides child welfare services to request a credit report for a child who enters into such an agreement with the consent of the child, and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 151, introduced by the Committee on Health and Human Services, an act relating to public welfare, requiring certain persons to report the commercial sexual exploitation of a child to an agency which provides child welfare services, requiring all persons to report the commercial sexual exploitation of a child to a law enforcement agency in certain circumstances, authorizing a fee for certain costs relating to information maintained by an agency which provides child welfare services, requiring an agency which provides child welfare services to adopt certain rules, policies, or regulations providing penalties, and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 152, introduced by Assemblyman Monroe Marino, Senators Kinsella and Spearman, an act relating to historic preservation, revising and increasing the penalties for crimes relating to certain actions which tend to injure or destroy historic or prehistoric sites, or the trafficking of cultural property obtained from state land without a permit, and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 143, introduced by Assemblyman Fumo et al., an act relating to crimes making it a crime to negligently store or leave a firearm under certain circumstances, providing penalty, and providing other measures properly relating thereto. Assembly Bill 154, introduced by Assemblyman Roberts et al., an act relating to secondhand dealers, revising certain requirements for reporting transactions by a secondhand dealer and providing elements properly in there too. Assembly Bill 155, introduced by Assemblyman Torres et al., an act relating to education, reducing the minimum number of credit hours required per semester for eligibility for a grant awarded under the Silver State Opportunity Grant Program, creating certain exceptions to the credit hour requirement, providing that grant money received by colleges pursuant to the program does not revert, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 156, introduced by the Committee on Health and Human Services, an act relating to child welfare, requiring a court to appoint an educational decision maker for a child for whom a petition is filed alleging that the child is in need of protection, prescribing the duties of such an educational decision maker, requiring an agency acting as a custodian of a child to include certain educational information in a report submitted to the court before a hearing to review the placement of the child, requiring the court to take certain actions if such an agency fails to include the required information in such a report, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 157, introduced by Assemblyman Hambrick et al., Senators Pickard and Parks, an act relating to human trafficking, requiring certain law enforcement officials to take certain actions upon initially encountering a possible victim of human trafficking, requiring the owner or operator of certain establishments and facilities to post an informational sign relating to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, requiring the Department of Health and Human Services to develop a statewide plan for delivery of services to victims of human trafficking, requiring the Department of Education and the State Board of Education to develop and distribute certain informational materials relating to the trafficking of children, providing penalty, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 158, introduced by Assemblyman Hambrick et al., Senators Hansen et al., an act relating to criminal procedure, authorizing a court to take certain actions when determining the sentence of a person convicted as an adult for an offense committed when the person was less than 18 years of age, if the person was a victim of sex trafficking or sexual assault and committed the offense against the abuser, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 159, introduced by Assemblyman Asafa et al., Senator Kinsella, an act relating to food security, establishing the Governor's Advisory Council for Food Security within the Department of Health and Human Services, prescribing the membership and duties of the council, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 160, introduced by Assemblywomen Cohen et al., Senators Spearman and Scheibel, an act relating to the Commission on Tourism, revising the composition of the Commission on Tourism to include 2 members who represent ecotourism, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 161, introduced by Assemblyman Hansen et al., an act relating to common interest communities, prohibiting common interest communities from restricting the ownership of pets by units owner under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 162, introduced by Assemblyman Daly et al., Senator Canizaro, an act relating to governmental administration, authorizing the Legislative Commission to suspend or nullify certain administrative regulations, abolishing the subcommittee to review regulations of the Legislative Commission, revising provisions relating to administrative regulations, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 163, introduced by Assemblyman Watts et al., Senators Brooks and Scheibel, an act relating to water, revising certain requirements relating to a plan of water conservation, revising minimum standards for plumbing fixtures in new construction and expansions and renovations in certain structures, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 164, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, an act relating to marijuana, imposing certain requirements relating to advertising by a marijuana establishment and a medical marijuana establishment, revising provisions relating to medical marijuana establishment agencies, providing for the registration of agents who work or volunteer at or contract with a marijuana establishment, revising provisions relating to disciplinary action against a medical marijuana establishment agent and a marijuana establishment agent, authorizing civil penalties for certain violations relating to advertising, and providing other measures properly in there too. Assembly Bill 165, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager et al., an act relating to civil liability, revising provisions relating to civil liability for causing the injury or death of certain pets, and providing other measures properly in there too. Assembly Bill 166, introduced by Assemblyman Tolles and Roberts, an act relating to crimes, establishing the crime of advancing prostitution, revising the penalties for the crime of living from the earnings of a prostitute, providing penalties, and providing other measures properly in there too. Assembly Bill 167, introduced by Assemblyman Hafen et al., an act relating to crimes, authorizing a person who holds a permit to carry a concealed firearm to possess a handgun in a motor vehicle that is on the property of the Nevada System of Higher Education or a private or public school or child care facility in certain circumstances, and providing other measures properly in there too. Assembly Bill 168, introduced by Assemblyman Thompson and Torres, an act relating to education requiring a school to provide a plan of action based on restorative justice before suspending or expelling a pupil, prohibiting certain pupils from being suspended or expelled in certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly thereto.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bills 148 through 163 be referred as written on the Assembly Bill introductions dated February 15, 2019, 11 a.m., which all members have a copy of on their desk.
Without objection, so referred. We'll go back to order business 2.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, if we can stay in order business 8.
Order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 164 be referred to your Committee on the Judiciary.
Without objection, so referred. If we can go now back to order business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, February 14, 2019. To the Honorable the Assembly. I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day adopted Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 3. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, order business number 8.
Order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bills 165 through 168 be referred as directed on Assembly Bill introductions dated February 15, 2019 at 11 a.m., of which all members have a copy of on their desk.
Without objection, so referred. We'll now go to order of business 13. Under order of business 13, there will be no objection. Speaker and Chief Clerk will sign Senate Bill 143. Now back to order of business 15. Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a guest on the floor with me. I'd ask him to stand up. He may be familiar to many of you. This is Clark County Commissioner Justin Jones, representing Commission District F. As many of you know, he used to be a member of our body across the hallway, the State Senate, and he's here visiting for the day. Could you please make him feel welcome?
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With me today, I have a constituent from Assembly District 29, Ashley Campbell. Ashley is a librarian at Pinecrest Academy and a Nevada native, being born in Henderson, Nevada. Please make her feel welcome.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity under order of business 15. Although I could not express my opposition to the previous bill we just passed, I'd like to make a comment about it right now. I thank all of you in this chambers for loving Nevada and caring about it and being passionate about it. Unfortunately, I strongly feel that SB 143 will put an undue burden on those of us, especially in rural Nevada. Although one of my colleagues from the South mentioned that it's not really going to be a burden to get a license or an FDL because we all live within 10 miles of a licensed dealer, I can say that quite the contrary. My constituents don't even live within 30 miles of a pharmacy, let alone a licensed dealer. So also it doesn't clarify about those of us who are hunters. And yes, we can loan our rifles to those other folks if they have a valid license and a valid tag. But in my neck of the woods, we frequently have ranchers who have workers on their ranch, and we have firearms in our trucks and our vehicles for predator control, and that's not addressed in the bill that was just passed. I also ask you that folks, I'm a proud CCW holder, and I make it known that I hold CCW classes on my property down in Smith Valley. I have a wonderful instructor there that will teach anybody who wants to come and take that 8-hour class. But because most people want that CCW to protect themselves, they frequently don't have a clue on what gun's appropriate for them. So what he will do, and myself included, we will take our firearms and let, especially the women who have no idea what firearm is appropriate for them, use those firearms to see what one fits. That's going to not be legal now that this bill has passed. And I must say, my heart goes out to those folks who've lost their lives with gun violence and any other violent act or any unexpected deaths. My heart goes out to our Assemblywoman who was at that event. It is scary and it is always a concern, and I wish this bill would help fix that. But I urge you to let's focus now that we're past this bill. Let's really try to get some legislation out there that will help reduce gun violence. Let's help with some behavioral health issues, mental health issues. And I thank you all for your time.
Assemblywoman Krasner. And I'll remind members, debate on the bill that's now passed has been closed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to introduce my student intern. His name is Connor Smith, so if you guys could just make him feel welcome, please. Thank you.
Assemblyman Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not to re-debate the bill itself, but I would like to make some comments about it. We are supposed to make laws and not flaws. I think, however...
Speaker, point of order.
Assemblywoman Benita Thompson.
Yes, just that there is not a question before the House at this point, and so under Order of Business 15, there can be remarks, but debate on the question is closed. So we just want to remind speakers that in order to keep with decorum, that remarks should be general and not specific to measures if there's not a measure before us.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and I'll also remind the body that we have had several comments about decorum, and I'm proud of this body for what we've done and how we've done it in a respectful way. But once we open the door to violating that decorum and opening the door for this type of banter back and forth beyond the debate of the bill, we open the door for a degradation of that decorum. So with that being said, Mr. Edwards, if you have any other remarks under Order of Business 15?
At this point, I'll take a pass and confer with you later.
Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to recognize Andrew Woods and Elaine Sanchez here today with Save Lives Nevada. They have been tireless in their efforts to advance gun safety in our state. If you could all please make them feel welcome.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
I just wanted to thank you first and foremost for allowing the opportunity to speak. I believe that this is the great state of Nevada, not New York City. Nevada is the home of the cowboy, the farmer, the miner. In Nevada, our children can still play outside. We can all drive a few miles to our beautiful, rugged outdoor activities. And most of all, in Nevada, we are still free. Free to love who we want, free to gamble when we want, free to ride bareback across the mountains, and most of all, free to protect our loved ones. Our forefathers, in adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers. Moreover, all of us took an oath to uphold that very Constitution. I plea that we keep our promise to our citizens and we allow bipartisan negotiations as we move forward to come up with effective solutions that for all of our constituents. Again, I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Benita Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Some reminders for the body that Monday is a deadline day for us, so plan on multiple floors throughout the day as we get some bill introductions done so that we may have more robust debate on these issues being presented to us. Also, Monday, February 18th, there is a Bleeding Disorders Awareness Day, and they're having a breakfast in room 3100 at 7:30 a.m. There's a Wear Red for Ed, then they will have a display in the front foyer, and also the Nevada Insurance Council wine and cheese reception will be at Bella Fiore's from 5 to 7:30 p.m. Seeing no other business before us, Mr. Speaker, I would move that we stand adjourned until Monday, February 18th at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.